Test, test. We're in it.
Connor, when I say yeah, you say yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a little delay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully this isn't your first time listening, but if it is, welcome. Welcome back or welcome to Triple Feature. My name is Emma.
I'm Freddy.
And I'm Sea Bear.
And together we are three friends that like to talk about movies, and we started a podcast to talk about movies, and that's what we're doing. We are going to talk today about our recently watched, what we've been watching lately, what we've been firing up on our TVs or going to the movie theaters to watch, what we're excited about watching in the future, and later we're going to get to Freddy's spooky October pick.
Spooky.
Anyway, Connor, Sea Bear, get us started with what you've been watching lately that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, give us the rundown first.
Yeah, give us the rundown and then we'll talk. We'll chat.
So I went to the movie theaters to go see A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 version, the original.
Wow.
Then I rewatched Mickey's House of Villains, a Disney film. It's a straight to DVD movie from Mickey's House of Mouse. And then it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Gave that another rewatch since it's spooky October. Rewatch of Beetlejuice, and then also a rewatch of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Tell us more about your A Nightmare on Elm Street theater experience, because I'm a big theater person. I love going to the movies. What was that?
Yeah,
like?
so Tasha ended up buying me and her passes to the Hollywood Boulevard, a dine-in movie theater where they bring you food and drinks and stuff to your seats. So for the month of October, each Saturday they're showing a big horror movie. So last Saturday we saw A Nightmare on Elm Street. The only difference is, I will say, the seats are office chairs with the table so you can eat your food and stuff. But it was still But so the theater is actually really cool. The theater that we were in was the Charlie Chaplin room. It was just all Charlie Chaplin like posters and memorabilia.
Oh, cool.
And like I guess like each theater is like designed that way. And then even like the outside, they had like a bunch of movie props and stuff from like different movies, and even like Chicago like movies like the Blues Brothers, like the cars like above like the theater itself. So
nice.
Yeah, it was just a cool experience. And yeah, like seeing A Nightmare on Elm Street in theaters in today's landscape was weird, just because of like how much people would laugh at certain things that I don't think a lot of people in the 80s laughed at. It just kind of goes to show like how like horror movies have evolved nowadays. And it was just kind of like, oh, like that's kind of interesting. Like people would laugh at this versus like, I wonder how people were probably terrified back in the 80s when that movie dropped.
Yeah.
But
or like it's okay to laugh in a horror movie. Like I think people have kind of changed that perspective.
Was it like people laughing at like things that are now tropes that at the time this might have been like the first time they were doing it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was just like it was just like the mom being a super alcoholic. And anytime she pulled out the vodka, like everyone was just like, "Oh my god!" Like, okay, like this lady's crazy. But or it just like just simple things like that, or just like how like the whole premise is that they need to stay awake. So like anytime like Heather Langenkamp like just brings out a cup of coffee, like especially towards the end where she just brings out the second like Mr. Coffee pot like under her bed. Like it was just like things like that. They're just like really funny. But yeah, it was overall like a great theater experience. I'm glad to hopefully continue down it. I know one of the movies that we're planning on seeing is Silence of the Lambs later down the road.
Cool.
So
yes.
Cool.
that should be good.
I have a question.
That'll be Tasha's first time.
So Freddie and I as a reminder, live in Detroit, and Connor, you live in Chicago. I have a question. Do you have any Alamo draft houses in Chicago?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oh,
we have one in Chicago. It's in Wrigleyville. So it's actually near the Music Box Theater, which is also a great movie theater that shows like films on film print and stuff.
I follow Music Box on Instagram. I'm always telling myself next time I go to Chicago, I want to go to the Music Box. However, have you ever been to the Alamo Draft House?
No, I've not. I told Tasha, like, after we went to the Hollywood Boulevard, I'm like, I gotta go see, like, the Alamo Draft House. I gotta go find a movie to go there, too. Just to compare the experience.
The Alamo Draft House is my favorite movie theater chain. They are very focused on, like, the movie experience. They do the, they do the food and drink service throughout the film as you're watching, and I have been wanting a Alamo Draft House in Detroit for the longest time, so here I am, speaking into the void that is podcast world and asking and pleading and begging for a Alamo Draft House close by. We were supposed to get one in 2020, and then 2020 happened.
And Alamo did not.
And Alamo said, nope. So I really am pleading, begging.
I would love to go to an Alamo Draft House. They would make so much money.
Just please. Anyway.
Yeah, I think they just opened last year. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well,
it's very new. Maybe
they'll branch out to Detroit.
Just put one right here in town. Put one right here downtown. There's
downtown, please.
There's zero theaters
Detroit
here
has
in town.
a big theater problem. I don't know if you know this, Connor, but like we have to drive to the suburbs to like see anything.
Yeah.
It is really terrible. I don't know why either, because it would be booming business.
Yeah, it's not like they never existed. There used to be theaters.
There used to be theaters here. So yeah, Detroit has a big theater problem.
I can't say I have the same thing here in Naperville.
No, I know.
Here in Naperville, I have an AMC, a Regal, and a Cinemark, all in like a 10-minute radius.
Well, but even in the Chicago area, like even in the city limits, there are tons of movie theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Detroit has a big problem, and I'm putting y'all on blast on my podcast that nobody listens to, so I'm just kidding.
No, we know you're listening. Put the Alamo Draft House in there.
Yeah, Mike Duggan. That's the mayor of Detroit. Mike Duggan, you better put a freaking Alamo Draft House here, sir.
And call him up.
Okay. So, is there anything else from your watch list that you want to talk about a little bit?
Yeah, the Beetlejuice. I rewatched
love Beetlejuice.
It, and I just can't get over the German expressionism that is like leaking out of that film.
Yeah,
that ends up really bleeding over into Batman '89. That Tim Burton also directed.
Yeah,
and it also, like, based on Letterboxd reviews and people that I follow, like film critics, like one person put it simply of just, it's crazy that Tim Burton made a Joker movie before making Batman. Like exactly. Michael Keaton plays the Joker role in Beetlejuice and just ends up playing Bruce Wayne. Yeah, it's just That's so good. Funny of just
that is pretty
of just
good.
how that works. But
that
Beetlejuice is great. Just the whole coming for your daughter, Chuck. Like
Michael Keaton's whole shtick in
I'm coming for your daughter,
Chuck. Hilarious.
And then shout out to Catherine O'Hara. Like, I love her. I love her in Home Alone. She is America's mom. Like,
Kevin, did you watch Schitt's Creek though?
The what?
Did you watch Schitt's Creek?
No, that's another show I need to get into. Yeah.
If you love Catherine O'Hara, you're gonna love Schitt's Creek because she is amazing. She plays this character that I have never, like, she plays an archetype that I have never seen in any other show. She literally created like a whole person, and the way she talks,
David.
David. No, that's really like Alexis, but like she's like baby. The way she talks is like this accent that's not American, but also not British, but also she's Canadian, and like it is amazing what she does. And then I mean she won an Emmy for it. So I mean she's it's so good, Connor. Like if you love Catherine O'Hara, watch that show. She is so amazing in it.
Yeah, no,
we're big fans.
I was just getting at more of the fact that like she kind of gives the same Home Alone performance that she does in Beetlejuice. Like
she's
had
like scream talking.
Yeah.
If you don't let me gut this house and make it entirely my thing, I'm gonna scream.
Let me just have this room. The principal from Ferris Bueller. Like he's also really good. Yeah, like I think like the one thing that I always had about Beetlejuice was that I always thought the home improvement guy was Alec Baldwin, because I only knew Alec Baldwin from like 30 Rock and like like old Alec Baldwin. So I never knew that Alec Baldwin was the hot guy in the movie.
He literally is so handsome.
Like it was like, oh, like, that's Alec Baldwin?
I watched
damn.
Beetlejuice, rewatched it a couple of years ago. It wasn't technically a theater. It was like an outdoor kind of like sit. It was like pandemic vibes. Like we had like headphones and we were sitting in like on a patio, and we were just like sitting in a chair, and just like they were playing it on the wall of a building, basically. It was
like
very strange.
Like a silent disco, but it's a silent movie theater.
Yeah, but essentially they're in the middle of this neighborhood. It's a place called Film Lab, which doesn't even exist anymore. But
theater problem.
We have a big theater problem. It's not actually, that was in Hamtramck, but still that doesn't exist anymore.
Hang on, don't disprove our point when we're trying to make it.
And I was like, damn, Alec Baldwin is good looking. I had no idea how good looking he used to be. I forgot. So yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, Gina Davis, right?
Such Gina Davis is also
such a cutie.
Everyone knocks it out, but yeah, it was just like rewatching it, just seeing like all of just like the weird stuff that everyone associates with Tim Burton. It's just like goes back to just like, again, like Gothic, like German expressionism, or just like the weird like angles and like all that kind of stuff, and like art house like things like that.
A lot of it really does look like a painting.
Yeah, the cabinet and it's just Dr. Caligari.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just so cool, and like how like he just brings that over to, again, like Batman 89, of just like Gotham City as a whole, and how like that's how people view Gotham even till this day. Yeah. But with Beetlejuice, it's just like that's their house that they're renovating, and it's just like such a weird house to put like in like the countryside of like Maine, I guess, or whatever. They don't really explain like where they are, but it's somewhere like out in the outskirts of New York.
Yeah. It's iconic. It's a great October Halloween yearly watch. It's just very funny. The scene, the dinner table scene.
Oh yeah,
is cracks me up every time. So yeah, we love it. Love that show. Love that for you. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Nope, that's pretty much it. If you want to know more about my thoughts about stuff that I said, just follow me on Letterboxd. It's Big Papa Seabear.
All right, we're big Letterboxd people.
Follow Big Papa Seabear.
Yeah, we write reviews, and so anything you missed, you can catch on Letterboxd. All right, Freddy, what are some things you watched this past week that you want to share with us?
Okay, so I really only, other than Blood Quantum, which we will get to,
which we're gonna get to.
I was continuing down my Agnes Varda journey of
We talked about
seeing
Agnes
everything.
last week.
So
We already established that she is the woman. She
Yes.
is the goat.
for sure. But so I just watched more of her movies. So I watched Le Bonheur.
We don't
Forgive
speak
me if
French, so-
I pronounce that incorrectly. It means happiness.
Cute.
And then I watched Lion's Love and Lies. Technically, it's called Lion's Love when it originally came out, but I think they sort of like retroactively added the and lies at the end of it later on. But specifically, going to talk about a little bit about Le Bonheur, happiness.
Oh.
Because there is a lot going on in that movie, and it definitely is like, it's a movie that I was thinking about it for a minute before I'm like, I don't even know how I fully feel about this movie yet. So it's called Happiness, and essentially it's a movie about a man in a very happy, healthy marriage. He has a wife, he has kids, like everything is all great and grand and splendor and all this and that, and he decides, you know what would make this happiness even better is if I added more happiness to it. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to get a mistress. And then I have two people that I can be. It's like happiness on top of happiness.
Yeah, sure.
Guy math.
And so, yeah, he's like this he's like this blissfully ignorant, like,
Yeah.
Boy math.
asshole.
Yeah.
And is just, but the thing is, Agnes Varda uses like really vibrant, saturated colors through the whole movie. Like even the transitions, the fade transitions between scenes it doesn't fade to black, it doesn't fade to white, it fades to like colors. It'll be like bright red, bright yellow. So like the film is presented very happily.
Wow.
So it's like you're looking at it through the perspective of this man, very much like in a similar vein to Midsummer, where it's like this is presented in like a very upbeat sort of.
It's kind of like misleading in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like it's so well done. There's this is where it's like it's almost like difficult for me to like even now still like formulate my thoughts on it.
Sure.
But it is I would say this is an example of Agnes Varda like really pushing her like sort of like traditional what was that?
Authorship?
Yeah, that's sort of present in all of her movies.
Yeah.
This movie has a lot of very flashy cinematography moments in it. So there's a lot of like interesting scenes. There's this dance scene that is, it's essentially a montage that
I love a good dance scene.
It pans back and forth on either side of this tree that goes right up the middle of the frame. And so when it gets to one side of the tree, it's like, you know, this man dancing with his wife, and then it goes to the other side of the tree and it's like this man dancing with his mistress, and it goes back to the other side of the tree and it's the wife dancing with this other guy, and then it pans back and it's like the mistress dancing with another person. There's a lot going on in it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. There was a couple notes that I think I lost, but I was listening to a lot of like interviews with Agnes Varda and like like talks that she had given where she went over her work, and she talks about presenting. The way that she worded it in one of her talks was, she said, I didn't want this movie to be like purely a movie about adultery, but I wanted it to be a question outside of the morals of society, which is like such an Agnes Varda way to like word that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it leads up to, I guess should I just spoil?
No,
like, I shouldn't
wouldn't spoil
okay.
anything.
I won't spoil anything then, I guess, because
No.
that's I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
it's definitely
you want to leave people wanting more. So
yeah,
the point of this is to maybe get people interested in seeing it for themselves. And if
Yeah.
you spoil it, I don't know if people would take
Yeah.
the time to look for it.
It's another fantastic Agnes Varda movie. I will say, it's a little bit tougher if this was going to be like the first Agnes Varda movie that you watch.
Mhm.
Still very much enjoyable, but I do think some of her
Okay.
earlier work is probably a better jumping off point, because then once you've sort of gotten familiar with her style of filmmaking, it really sort of like recontextualizes when you watch this movie, knowing like, okay, this is Agnes Varda, like this is her
Sure.
style. So yeah, I won't spoil anything, but
Okay.
very good.
Awesome. I think we can count on Freddy to come to this podcast every week with like the most obscure picks and watches that nobody has seen, and Connor and I can't really add anything to the conversation. So
Hey, I've seen some Criteria movies here and there.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful addition to the podcast where it's like, Connor's going to talk about, horror films, and I'm going to talk about new releases, and Freddie's going to talk about French New Wave. So
I'm going to talk about this movie from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That nobody's seen.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can count on that. So I saw a couple of new releases in the past week. I went to the movie theater, as I do. I do that often. On Sunday, I saw The Royal Hotel. I'm going to talk about that a lot. Then I watched Totally Killer on Amazon Prime, which is a kind of just like a goofy slasher flick.
Goofy slasher.
Time travel is also involved. There's a lot of references to like Scream and Back to the Future, and it's stars Kieran Shipka, but it was a fine watch. Like it's fun. Like put it on and watch it.
Yeah, I still need to see it
while you're like folding clothes or like eating dinner or something. Like it's like
I need to see that.
Yeah, you should see it. You would like it.
Well, I like Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, and also Freaky, which is like the same like Blumhouse thing where they take a like Happy Death Day is Groundhog's Day but a horror movie, and then Freaky is Freaky Friday but a horror movie. And it seems like Totally Killer is just Back to the Future but a horror movie. And so I was like, oh, this is up my alley.
Yeah, it's fun. Then I watched 2022's Scream, which is actually Scream 5, and that's my first time watching it. I needed to catch up on the Scream franchise because I haven't seen Scream 5 or Scream 6, which came out this year, and I watched it, and I know this about the Scream franchise. I know that it is like very self-aware and very meta and very ironic, but I forgot, and I was laughing so much. Just the amount of movie references and the meta commentary is so hilarious. Like I'm just
for Wes, that son of a bitch.
Yes, you beautiful son of a bitch. For Wes. No, it was it was hilarious, and I just had a blast watching it. I was laughing at both the meta commentary, but also just the dialogue was just so stupid. It's so dumb, but it's like it's on purpose. It's like you gotta have to like.
It was like campy.
It's so campy, and when Dewey says like maybe you're the killer because that cut deep, I was like, oh my god. And
Dewey's the real homie.
I freaking love her. She has probably the funniest line, which is like she does something. I don't want to spoil it, but she just basically does a big thing, and then she's like, I still prefer the Babadook.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I live for stuff like this because I just like to have a good time sometimes, you know, like not everything has to be so serious, but like, oh, that was so fun.
Five cream.
I can't wait
as
to
the
watch
fans.
Scream 6 next week. That's on my watch list. So
yeah, 5 cream as the fans call it is great.
Five cream.
5 cream.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm clapping. Okay, so I want to spend some time talking about the Royal Hotel because it was fan-freaking-tastic. Talk about taking things seriously. This movie is very serious. It is a very tense. I wouldn't even call it a thriller. I would call it a horror film.
Oh.
I would call it horror in my perspective. Let me paint the picture for you because I have a feeling that a lot of people have no freaking clue what this movie is because it's a neon film. It's being distributed very low budget, very, you know, only in a couple of theaters. It's not a lot of places. But it is directed by Kitty Green, who also directed 2019's The Assistant. I don't know if either one of you have seen The Assistant or heard about it, but it was one of the last films that I watched in theaters before the pandemic in 2020. And so let me kind of talk about that too, because like I think these two films are perfect pairings for one another. They really bounce off of each other very well. The Assistant is basically about this woman who works for a entertainment executive who is basically like a Harvey Weinstein character who is blatantly taking advantage of women and abusing women in order to, you know, abuse his power and, you know, for them to like make it in the industry. And she just like kind of works in his office with other people who have kind of just accepted this culture and they kind of just deal with it. And most of them are guys. And so basically it's just this woman who is grappling with like, I have no power in this situation, but I can't just sit back and watch this happen.
Okay.
So very, very good film. But then I watched The Royal Hotel. The Royal Hotel is about these two women who are traveling and they're in Australia and I think they're American. They tell everybody that they're Canadians because they say everybody loves Canadians and everybody hates Americans. So they're trying not to say they're from America. But I think they're Americans. And I thought that was hilarious. But anyway, they are basically kind of doing this thing, which is like travel working. So they're able to continue traveling by picking up odd jobs wherever they're traveling to make money while they're abroad. So it kind of starts out with them on this like pleasure yacht with basically a party boat in Sydney, and one of them like runs out of money, so they have to go find a job.
Yeah.
And the job that they find last minute is in a rural mining town, which is dominated by male miner workers. And the job that they are tasked with is basically bartending at this at the
Oh,
only
no.
the only establishment in town. Like the
Oh,
only
no.
establishment.
Yeah.
So Connor, you're picking up on what I'm putting down. What makes this a horror film is just the feeling of being powerless.
Yeah.
And
It sounds like
outnumbered.
completely outnumbered.
Yeah.
It sounds like it
And
doesn't
in
even. It sounds like it doesn't even need to be in in Australia. It could just be middle of America.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah.
absolutely anywhere in a patriarchy.
Yeah.
And
You could say it's absolutely everywhere.
yeah, exactly.
True.
You could put this movie anywhere, but I think Kitty Green is Australian, and it is so intense, and I don't want to like spoil anything, but I'm seeing a lot of people on Letterboxd, mainly male people on Letterboxd, who keep saying the same thing, which is nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, you just missed the whole thing, and that's fine. And I would just like to tell everybody now that that is not true. A lot happens in this film. And I had a great theater experience because I was the absolute only person in the movie theater.
Oh, yes.
And so
love it.
And so it was wonderful. So I kind of got that feeling of like, oh, I don't have to share this space with other people. I clapped.
Yeah.
I was clapping at one point because of some of the things that were happening. And there are other events that take place where I wasn't clapping. But yeah, I just really adored this movie because of how it made me feel and the way that the tension was built up. It was very masterfully done. It stars Julia Gardner, who's also in The Assistant. And if you watched Ozark, she plays, I forgot her name in the show, but she's wonderful in Ozark, and she just does a great job kind of just playing a lot of emotions without saying a whole lot of things. So I highly suggest that everybody watch The Royal Hotel because I think it's great. I think it's a sleeper for top movies of the year.
I'm gonna have to go see it because it sounds very interesting, and I appreciate a good tension building movie.
Yeah.
Especially given the subject matter.
Yeah.
It sounds like one of those movies where it's like the entire time you're watching it, you're just like wildly uncomfortable, but also like I cannot look away from this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was very interested once when David Sims from The Atlantic wrote his review. He said on Letterboxd, I understand all the slang in this because I watch so much Bluey.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that review.
But yeah, no, based on your pitch, I'm more interested in this film, and so I have to keep an eye out for that.
For real, and honestly, like I want people to go see this in the movie theater. I really do. But it's distributed by Neon, and all of their movies go onto Hulu eventually. So it'll probably be on Hulu in like January.
Yeah.
But, I still I'm a champion for the movie theaters. So I'm
movie
like,
champ.
Get your butt in there. So
Butts in seats.
Butts in the seats, please. Okay.
Sure.
That's it for our recently watched discussion. We're going to move on now to talk about Freddy's spooky October pick.
Spooky.
Which is Blood Quantum
Blood.
in 2019. Freddy, give us like a synopsis about what this movie is about without giving it away. Well, no, because we are going to give it away.
Yeah, so
we are going to spoil
hopefully
things.
we're gonna talk about this movie in depth. So obviously,
yeah,
if you have not watched it yet and you care about spoilers, watch the movie before you watch the rest of this episode.
And if you want to listen to this episode and watch it later,
just know it's going to be spoiled.
Or you can skip to the end to hear next week's pick or whatever. we'll have timestamps that you can look at later. So we are going to talk about every aspect of this film from beginning to end. So give us a synopsis.
All right. So it takes place. So the premise is that there is a zombie outbreak on the Red Crow Mi'kmaq Reservation in 1981 in Canada. And essentially, all of the indigenous population is immune to this zombie outbreak. So it is just white people that are zombies. And so over the course of the movie, we see the initial outbreak of the zombie apocalypse, and then we see, we skip forward a little bit and we see this encampment that the Red Crow have been able to build to protect themselves from this. And then over the course of the movie, we see this sort of unravel. I don't know how much we want to go into details right off the bat of what exactly happens. So
unraveling for sure.
Yeah. But baseline, natives are immune. Everybody else is not.
My favorite way to keep track of this is if they're red, they're dead. If they're white, they bite.
Yep. And which is spray painted on the outside of the encampment entrance, which it's so good.
I had to pause the movie when she closed the door because I was like, what does that say? And I was like, oh, too good. Good. Love that.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll just start right off the bat. So if the first thing that we get is Gisigu, the father of Trailer, our main character, one of them, and he's pulling his nets out of the water in the morning. He guts his fish, and after he guts his fish, they come back to life and they start flopping around.
Dude, so cool.
Yeah, which is what I thought was very interesting is it seems like it's pretty heavily alluding to poisoned water supplies.
Well, yeah, I wrote down pollution, contamination, poisoned water supplies for sure.
What's also interesting is with the time period that this takes place in, it puts it 10 years removed from a very massive water poisoning of a reservation in Canada. There was I want to say it was from 1940 to 1970 or something like that. It's not in the exact same part of Canada, but in the general southeastern side, there was a reservation that was poisoned for decades. There was mercury that was being poured into their water by local industrial
capitalism.
Yeah, there was companies that were just pouring mercury into the water, and so it devastated this community. So this being put in the 80s puts it 10 years removed from that, which I think is also just a little interesting note to go in there. Yeah.
That is pretty interesting of just hearing that and your thoughts, because I mean I wrote the zombie fish is just an interesting twist about the zombie metaphor. I'd never really seen a movie do the animals come back to life.
Well, I do want to talk about the animals.
Yeah.
Well, I mean they talk about it more, but it was just an interesting right off the bat of the animals can get infected because I've seen a lot of zombie stuff, and it was oh damn, if the animals get infected, what does that mean? And then they explain it more.
But it is a very interesting way.
So I kind of just had questions about this because the next animal that we see is Trailer's ex-wife's dog.
Yeah.
Really sick. He shoots her, and then she comes back to life later. But later on, they're asking people who are coming into the encampment have you had any dog or fish?
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
say something very specific. Moose and deer are clean.
Yeah.
So what's the deal? Why
Um,
are dog and fish unsafe, but moose and deer are safe, are clean? That's the I struggled to find the connection.
and honestly, I don't have like a perfectly concrete
Yeah.
answer
To me,
for you on that one, but
What do you think, Connor?
yeah, to me, based on just like watching a lot of zombie movies, I think like they kind of wrote themselves in a corner, and I think they were just kind of like, oh yeah, like like the fact that dogs and fish can come back to life, that they're like, oh well, because like if every animal can come back to life, then
how are
the
we gonna
food
eat?
supply is gone. So
Okay.
when they
Yeah.
do the time jump to 6 months later, everyone should be dead at that point, because
But I
everyone
also
would have ate
wonder-
like
I also
every
wonder
every normal stuff.
if there is any connection to this. There's really not an explanation as to why these indigenous people are immune either. So what
Yeah.
if there's a connection to dogs and fish are equivalent to white people and moose and deer are equivalent to indigenous people?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
In
mean,
this world.
there's probably aspects of like Mi'kmaq culture that I'm not aware of with in regards to significance of moose and deer specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know
Yeah.
like with my own culture, like moose and deer have significance, but
Well, I'm sure that has something to do with it.
I don't know, there's a lot of different elements that it could be looked at through.
Yeah.
If it's like some of these animals are also like traditionally
Mhm.
animals that you would see like a shapeshifter turn into.
Oh.
It could be something like that. It could also just be significance of like various clans.
Wow,
That
okay.
would be something that would definitely be worth an even deeper dive into.
Wow.
I don't want to put
Yeah.
too much out there that's like me speaking on purely behalf of, because it's like very specifically like this is a Mi'kmaq reservation, so I don't want to speak too much on
Exactly.
like that, like the Mi'kmaq culture specifically. So
Okay. Well, I mean, I just think it's a cool
Yeah.
little detail.
100%.
I was curious about.
Yeah, because it is like there isn't necessarily a reason for them to say specifically moose and deer.
There isn't. They don't have to say
Yeah.
that. And
So-
they say it.
There is definitely something there that can be delved
'Cause I
even
did-
deeper into.
Very
I did write down that like it would be an interesting movie of like I was like, that's an interesting twist to like have like the animals get infected, because again, like if that did happen in the real world and stuff, like I said, like how would we survive? Because based on normal zombie apocalypse movies and shows and stuff, is like we have to go back to our basic instincts of hunting. But if the animals are off the table, then it's like, how do we eat to survive? And I'm like, that is an interesting thought to add to a movie. But
Yeah.
like I said, like they just kind of write that off of like, oh no, not all the animals are there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like, it's an interesting thought, but then they just kind of like, no, that's not kind of what the movie's about at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say there is a lot of stuff in this movie that does have like, it has subtext that isn't like blatantly pointed out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's subtext that people are gonna just walk right over.
Yeah.
Because that's one
Um,
that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, like for example, when they're still in the introductory part of this,
Mm-hmm.
and they pick up Lysol.
What a name for a person.
Yeah.
Lysol.
So when they're talking about Lysol's mom,
Mm-hmm.
they don't go, like, Lysol's mom is brought up multiple times throughout the movie, and at no point is it ever fully discussed what has happened to her.
Mhm.
They just constantly say that like the whole reservation knows what happened to his mom, which is
Oh, Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
picking up on something here.
So like there's these, it's like, if you know,
Yeah.
these are like,
I did not
this
catch
is like
that, though.
missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yeah.
Like here, it's like it's not like blatantly pointed out to the audience. However, like these are conversations that just happen.
Yeah.
On reservations everywhere.
It's just like, yeah, we don't know what happened to her.
Yeah.
She's just gone.
Yeah, or everybody does know what happened to her, but it's a painful enough memory that nobody really wants to talk about it.
Jesus. There's a lot
Damn.
of heaviness in this movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to give away my like rating right now, but in my review, I wrote something to the effect of like, you know, it's a zombie movie. I'd like for a little bit more lightness, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you know, just a little bit of comic relief, but at the same time, it's like, well, this is also a story about Indigenous people, written and directed by an Indigenous person, and the entire cast is Indigenous, and it's like you get one shot to like say something important, and it's like, yeah, you know, it's okay to like be super serious sometimes too.
Yeah, and I mean there are moments that are definitely meant to be played for laughs, like taking a shit on the windshield of this old white woman's car.
Or
everything sounds like a good idea when you're drunk.
Yeah.
Or the zombie that gets cut in half and he's like, fucking warn me next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good.
Oh,
honestly,
dude, I laughed so hard at that. It was so funny.
I think the dynamic of the elders was so awesome.
God,
like with Trailer and Gisugu. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Gisugu, yeah.
Gisugu and the chainsaw
Zed's
guy
dead.
and the axe guy. I don't remember their names, but like those four like older elder gentlemen, the way like their banter with each other and like their dynamic with each other, it was so fun. Because they're just like in very dire situations, and you have the axe guy and the chainsaw guy and the samurai guy and the gun guy, and they're like doing something that is very risky that could end their lives, but they're just like, it's just a Tuesday for them.
Yeah. They're like, no, here it is.
By the way, I'm going to use this opportunity to have a little chat. We're going to pick our fighter.
We're going to pick our fighter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
Out of the four guys.
Okay.
Who's your guy?
It's Gisugu. What do you mean?
I was going to say Gisugu.
Of course. He kills like 10 zombies with a sword.
He kills literally hundreds of zombies
mine's
with
chainsaw
his sword. Okay,
chainsaw
so Connor's
guy.
chainsaw guy.
All right.
But Gisugu is literally my guy.
This man's goated.
He is
goated, but
chainsaw
guy is just like he's the homie. Like
yeah.
when he got the sword in him, I was like, I almost shed a tear. I was like, no! Like I screamed out no! Because it was just like, no, like this dude's just the homie.
Yeah. And he saved the day several times. Yeah. And I can appreciate that. But for the longest time, basically probably since I started watching The Walking Dead, I have wanted a samurai sword.
Yeah.
So bad. Like that is my weapon of choice.
The samurai sword.
Like that is the best weapon in my opinion. So
not crossbow?
No, it's not a crossbow.
Not Daryl?
It's a samurai sword. No, Michonne is my favorite.
No,
you don't need to get into Walking Dead, but Michonne is my favorite. She's a complete badass with that samurai sword.
Yeah.
I don't want anything else. I don't need.
She was my favorite.
If you're in a zombie apocalypse and you have a samurai sword, you are going to be the most. You're going to be the most like badass person in the room.
Yeah.
Like, shit, this guy got a samurai sword. All right.
Like I want that.
This is business.
I want
it's
that.
business
he just
time.
like cuts up Moon's face real quick.
Yeah.
Just boom.
Yeah.
All right.
He said, "Hey, Victor."
Okay, so.
Bet you didn't hear about your dad.
Gisugu wins. He's my hero. Okay, what else you got?
I still champion chainsaw guy.
Yeah.
It's the homie.
Okay, so we've got the fish.
Mhm.
We've got Joseph and Lysol get picked up from jail because
They're dumb.
Joseph got drunk and took a shit off a bridge onto an old
And
white
Lysol
woman's car and
just
fell.
sucks.
Yeah. Lysol is such an interesting character though.
Yeah.
Like Lysol has some of the most poignant lines in this entire movie.
True.
But he is like
Lysol and
he is vindictive.
Uh-huh.
So
I literally wrote down, like, at one point, I was like, Lysol needs to chill out.
Yeah.
I was like, you're right, but calm down.
Yeah.
And then later on, I was just like, this motherfucker is just, like, he's just bad news.
Yeah. So let's, I guess, do we want to just kind of go through the movie periodically, or do we kind of just want to talk about like our highlights?
Highlights.
Okay, I guess we'll just assume that you've watched this. So if we talk about certain scenes, if you've seen it, you'll know what scenes we're talking about.
Yeah.
I would say the first big scene, we had already started talking about it, is it's not the first big scene, but the first scene that has like a lot of poignant lines back to back to back, is that scene where they're at the entrance of the encampment.
Yeah.
And it's Lysol interrogating these people that Joseph and Charlie bring. And
I was so frustrated with this.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating.
So first, obviously, Lysol, like, immediately off the bat is like, what the hell is this?
For real.
And of course it's like this white man is bringing his diseased daughter wrapped in blankets, ironically enough. And so you've got Lysol immediately interrogating them. And so the first thing off the bat is like, they're like, she's sick. They put the pallet down. They put her on there, and they have the gun pointed at her. And when the man's like setting his daughter down, he's like, why are you doing this? Like, I haven't done anything wrong. And then Lysol looks him dead in the eye and says, you're bringing your sick here. What's right about it?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And like, he's right. Like, I literally wrote down the audacity of these white people.
Yeah.
To, one, bring your bitten daughter to the gates of this sanctuary. 2, kill yourself while you're inside.
Yep.
And 3, just walk in and lie to these people about being bitten.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
now,
he admits
there
to.
are some. No,
He admits to that.
The girl.
It's Lilith.
The girl.
Lilith blatantly lies as well.
Lilith goes in and they think she's healthy, and they're like, "Are you bitten?" She lies to her face.
Yeah.
Lies to Joss's face and says that she's not.
Well, she lies.
So it's just like, I'm like, why?
I was referring to the guy.
Like, why? Yeah. So, but I don't know. I don't know if he knew. I don't know if he knew that she was bit.
The dad?
Well, no, I was.
He did. He says it. He says, because he thinks
I'm talking about Lilith. Did the man who killed himself in the bathroom know that Lilith was also bit?
Oh.
Because I don't think he did.
Well, here's my take. I don't think he was with her. The guy that killed himself because that was his daughter that they were going for. I don't think he knew Lilith. I think.
Well, and they do say that the dad and the daughter were stragglers when they first walk up.
I'm just wondering why.
And then also he did admit when the Lysol was like interrogating him. He's like, I admit I should have told you that she was bit when the one pregnant girl like picked him up. So like he was like, I should have maybe said that, but he only kept that because of the fact of like apparently there's like a cure, but he didn't realize that the cure is just indigenous people
Yeah,
can't get sick.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
the title of the movie, Blood Quantum. That's the amount of native indigenous blood that you have in order to be considered indigenous.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, let's put a pin in that, and we'll come back to that, because that is also like a very important subplot to the movie.
Yeah.
And so
because of
but yes, blood quantum is a measurement of quote unquote Indian blood in you.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out how frustrated I was. Like you're coming to this sanctuary to bring your daughter who's already dead. Like, what do you... Okay, yeah, he thinks there's a cure. But once you know there's not a cure, you're already on the outside. Once you know your daughter is dead, why would you kill yourself inside of the sanctuary? Like, if you can't continue your life without your daughter, and you blame yourself for her death, whatever it is, leave, man. Leave. Yeah. Like, these people are selfish.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey,
but like,
talk about another funny scene when the guy comes in. He's like, he couldn't just shoot himself like a normal person.
Just shoot himself like a normal person. Yeah.
And then he's talking to Trailer. And he's like, "You got this."
Yeah.
And then he gets bit.
But hey, why people do stupid shit?
Trailer takes off his shirt because he got bit again.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was just like, because I was like, time had passed and we haven't seen a lot. And I was just like, he's going to have so many bites.
Yeah.
And then he took off his shirt and it was just all the way down his back, was just a bunch of bites.
Yeah. Which also, I really do like that scene, because it, like, perfectly, without them having to say anything, it just shows how difficult it has been to make what they currently have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just see it. Like, they've had to go through so much. He's been bitten like dozens of times.
So you don't
just
have
to make this encampment that.
So you don't have to show that, because you're showing that by just showing his back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
That, and then, like, them being immune really works. Of just like, because like they show like, oh, like, because even when Lysol is interrogating these white people, and the white guy like says like, look, like, they're immune, and it shows like his hand, like it just shows like the one bite mark on his hand. And the fact that they show like multiple marks on his back is like, oh shit, like, like these people are really immune. It isn't just like a one and done. Like, it isn't like The Last of Us of like Ellie being like, oh, like I got I got bit once and apparently I'm immune, so I'm the cure type of thing.
Yeah. Another thing that just frustrated the crap out of me was they're talking about the daughter. And they're speaking in their native language, and he like yells at them to speak English. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no. Who do you think you are? Anyway,
it's the caucasity.
The caucasity of these people. Anyway, and
it takes him 3 sentences.
I know it's very much on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's very much, from an indigenous perspective, of a lot of frustration with white people. But I was just like, God. Like, this is so anyway.
Well, it is funny too how he yells at them, but it's like he knows, like, I'm pretty sure he knows what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, it's like one of those things of like, you have to be a rational person to be like, you obviously know that they're talking about like they're gonna kill your daughter. Like you don't have to yell like speak English in order to know like, hey, we're gonna kill your daughter, because you're the fucking fuck up that decided like, hey, I'm gonna bring your sick here. So like, it's just kind of funny of like the dudes just like speak English, and it's like, bruh, like, what they're talking, like, they're talking shit about you. Like, come on.
That it's like, there's a reason that they're not saying something in a way that you're gonna understand it just outright.
Come on.
Yeah.
But so going off of this scene though, so they establish that they have this encampment, which is a reservation. I mean, it is literally it is a reservation.
Yeah.
Like, they have been forced into this encampment by this ravenous group of sick white people, and they can't leave, like, because if they leave, it's dangerous. And they have to try to keep these white people out at the same time. So it like takes this idea of a reservation and like that, like just the idea, because like every single zombie movie has their home base, their encampment. But when you put it in the perspective of this movie, it just inherently gets this metaphor like placed upon it, with them having to say or do very little different than like a lot of other zombie movies.
Yeah.
It's just like, just contextually it that gets put on there.
I love that perspective.
So that was like I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, this is gonna be so good. This is gonna be so good.
I love that.
So you're playing off of that. Then we see we start to get like, we've established earlier on like the really strenuous relationship between Lysol and Trailer, because after Lysol's mother dies / goes missing, Trailer puts him into foster care. And foster care in general has a lot of issues. Foster care within indigenous communities also has like an entire other set of issues. Like, there's a reason why the Indian Child Welfare Act exists in the first place.
Oh man.
And it is like directly related to foster care within indigenous communities, because of how many times indigenous kids are taken and they're like removed from their culture, or they're given to families that either don't recognize their cultural background or have blatant disdain for their cultural background, and then abuse these children because of that. So like that plays a very large, and like they don't get too much into, it's the same thing with his mom. They don't have to say a whole lot to say a whole lot. All they have to say is, he went into foster care, Alan, and he came out Lysol.
Wow.
And you get a lot like unspoken in just like one line of dialogue here.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And we see that played out in Lysol's actions.
Yeah.
Pretty much throughout the entire film. Like he almost has like no redemptive qualities.
Yeah.
And that's just tragic, because.
And what's unfortunate is the way that like Trailer sort of just like burdens his own like guilt and shame over that.
Yeah.
And like never really reconnects with him.
Yeah.
Like he's
almost not a son at all.
Yeah. But at the same time, like he is his son, and they are linked, and they have this like trauma directly tied between the two of them. And that's why like one of my favorite things in the movie is the way that they visually link their death scenes. Like Trailer and Lysol have visual match death scenes.
They do.
They both get like above, straight looking down on top of them, and as they are literally consumed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the traditional zombie death
traditional zombie death.
Yeah.
No, that's a really nice parallel that I didn't even catch on this watch. But yeah, they're both on their backs and they're both kind of trapped, and so there is that connection. And I don't think Trailer, who is the protagonist, by the way, Michael Grey Eyes is such a snack.
Michael Grey, yes, we love Michael Grey Eyes. What a man.
Okay, I just had to get that out. I was just like, damn, he looks good. And he's like getting up there, you know, but he still is very handsome. But like he never like minces words about how he feels about himself. Like he has a lot of like disdain for himself as well, and how he's lived and how he's failed and how
Yeah.
he's and so I think like his death is tragic but also very poetic because like he gets to kind of redeem himself a little bit
Yeah.
in the eyes of like his at least his second son and his ex-wife and then he's like tell big stories about me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, geez, that's really good.
Tell my grandchild.
Yeah,
like, that was
stories.
That was the thing. That was the
Yeah.
thing that got me. I'm just like, damn, like he's like that's got to be big pressure on the what's her name that's pregnant of like, well, damn, now I got to deliver this child.
Now I have to live because you died.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or else he died for nothing. like shit.
All right.
Even with that, him like never fully forgiving himself, that the scene when after they leave the jail at the beginning of the movie and he tells Lysol that Joseph deserves better, and Lysol says better than what? And he says better than either one of us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He knows that he's a crap father. He knows it. But, he gets to kind of...
Yeah, but he never forgives himself for that, and that prevents him from getting any sort of established relationship with Lysol.
Yeah.
And maybe if there was an establishment, or, maybe if the world didn't suck and Lysol still had a mom, Lysol wouldn't be
Lysol. He would probably still be Alan.
He'd be Alan.
Yeah.
Well, he also admits it with what's the other one's name? That's not Lysol. The other brother,
Joseph.
Like he even admits it with Joseph of just the fact of like when he's talking to the ex-wife of like, oh, like he has your qualities, and she's like, well, he has yours, and he's like, what, shitting off bridges? like he kind of admits that like, yeah, like I'm a shit dad,
Yeah. Yeah, and I like protagonists like that who are like really complicated and have a lot of flaws.
Mm-hmm.
It makes them a lot more interesting. What else you got for us?
Small note. Lysol paraphrases Rage Against the Machine lyrics, which I'm a fan of. When he says these people haven't seen a brown person since their grandparents owned one.
Yeah.
Which is him paraphrasing Down Rodeo.
Goodness. Yeah.
I thought that was a good one.
I do love the not so subtle stabs at just white people.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And then the quite literal stabs of zombies.
Literal stabs and bullets.
Oh. So essentially, I guess we can get a little more into the like final acts. Was there anything from like the first two acts of the movie that you all had anything you wanted to?
I just wanted to shout out the very cool animated title cards.
Oh yes.
From the beginning, like going into the chapters and the acts, like there's this transition that is like animated. Mm-hmm. And it, like is very meaningful. Like in the first one, we see like a plantation, like that's like has a lot of black smoke. Not a plantation. What am I saying? Like a nuclear plant or something. And then in the forefront, there's like this like woman who's like in grass.
And she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful, but it's also just it's saying so much, and it's just on the screen for like maybe 3 seconds, and like you really gotta like there's messages in there like where did this disease come from, and why do you think people that are native to this land are immune from anyway. I think we've kind of like
the world's so sick of our shit.
So that's literally probably my favorite line from the whole thing, and it's from Moon, who is a very interesting character, and I love the actor because he's also in Reservation Dogs, and he plays like basically a pothead, and he's awesome. But
Gary
Farmer.
Gary Farmer.
Yeah,
Gary Farmer's a legend. Gary Farmer is in like damn near
He's so
every
funny.
indigenous film and TV show. Like, he is a legend.
Yeah,
He's Victor's dad.
He plays
Hey, Victor.
Billy.
I heard
Willie
about your
Jack's
dad. Yeah.
in Reservation Dogs, and he's so funny. But anyway,
He's also the main. He's in Powwow Highway.
Okay, I like this guy, but yeah, he definitely has the best line, which is what you just said. Which is this world's just so sick of our shit.
I also, in that same part where he says, when he's maybe thinking, maybe the world just forgot about us, which is like almost literally a sentiment that my grandfather has said to me at one point, just talking about like history in general and what people learn. He's like, they just don't learn anything about us. We're invisible.
Yes.
Like,
it's crazy.
Oh my God, it makes me want to scream sometimes.
American education system.
Literally. I mean, we learn like, they were here and then they were moved. And that's like pretty much all we learn. We don't learn about the genocide.
No.
We don't learn about the treaties that we broke. We don't learn about anything.
There's a lot of stuff we don't learn.
It's crazy.
You said Andrew Jackson made them walk.
We learned about the Trail of Tears, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Well, it's not even just that. Like to even go to like something like HBO's Watchmen, of like there's so many white people specifically that learned about the Tulsa massacre with black people.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just like, like that actually happened in America, and it's like, like who knew like a fake superhero show could teach people like about real American history. Mm-hmm. Like it's just crazy that like there's so many things like that don't get taught in schools or just in general. It just kind of gets brushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we can't, it's nice to like be exposed to those things, but we can't rely on them to teach like the general public about the truth.
Yeah.
It's really sad. This film does a great job of like just giving a lot of perspective that we're not used to getting.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this is a good segue. Let's talk about Blood Quantum now.
Okay.
We'll pull the pin out of this. Quantum? So as we were just discussing, was there something else you wanted to say, Connor?
Well, I was gonna say what I got out of the first act, which is just only thing that I highlighted the most was, hell yeah, the fucking Evil Dead 2013 chainsaw. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
When Chainsaw Guy first appears and he sticks that chainsaw in the white woman's head. I was like, all this is missing is just the blood rain from 2013's Evil Dead. I'm like, this is just like I obviously think Evil Dead 2013 did it better because of the fact that like it's a lot longer of her chainsawing the demon, but it was still cool just seeing that of just like how long they did it in Blood Quantum. I'm like, these effects are sick.
So I know this was a Shudder original, but I don't know how big the budget was on this, but I thought the special effects were very, very good.
Yeah.
They were very good. Like when Trailer like kills that guy's wife at the very beginning, I was all, damn.
Yeah. And it's just like her
that was
head
Midsommar
caving
level
in.
head blunt trauma. Like
the only one
really
that was the only one that was a little questionable in my mind, just because I've seen a lot of horror stuff was the one where the samurai guy slices the guy in the head. Mm-hmm. And that was the only one where I'm like, that seemed a little CG, but the like everything else was so like amazing.
That's a pretty dang sharp samurai sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I want one real bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real bad.
So
talk about Blood Quantum.
Yeah. So with Blood Quantum, we were saying that it is the measurement of Indian blood, quote unquote, in your body. But the thing that I find so interesting and what I really appreciate about it is the way that blood quantum is handled by the characters in the movie. So Charlie, the girlfriend, is pregnant.
Yeah.
She is
white.
Yes, she's white, and she is terrified of this baby turning into a zombie. And when you're watching it, basically everybody that she confides in over this, this anxiety is very much like, that's not the case. Like you will be fine. Like this baby is going to be immune. It's nobody, because one, she doesn't have this conversation with any other white characters. She's only having this conversation with other Native characters. And so the thing that I really like about this is that essentially blood quantum isn't real.
Yeah.
Like blood quantum is made up.
Yeah.
And historically,
can you explain more in depth about that?
Yeah. So like historically, blood quantum is,
I was about to say, like, how do you even measure that? You can't possibly do that.
It's like a descendancy thing. So they're like, okay, well, you're
both of your
parents. Yeah. No, I mean, quite literally, you have to show your papers. Like that's unfortunately like right on the money. Like my tribal ID has my blood quantum written on it.
God, you're kidding.
Like, so it's just there. But historically it was used to measure, it was like, so it's, let's just say as an example, both of your parents are 100% Native American. You'll be 100%. One of your parents is 100%. One of your parents is white. You'll be 50. One of your parents is 50. One of your parents is 100. You'll be 75, right? It's just this.
What happens if you get below like 25%? Like, like, is there a certain amount where you're like, oh, you're not Native enough?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. So historically it was used to determine how white you were, right? And because that was how much of a human, it was how much of a human being you are. So it's like, okay, well, you're white enough that, we can train you, essentially. That was like the mindset of the US government. Yeah. Well, it was like, okay, well, you're white enough that if we force you into our boarding school education, we'll, you can go out into the world and, work for some rich white man, and you'll be a quote unquote productive member of society, right? And if you're under that, it's like, I don't know, just you're a savage. Like, so historically, this is the measurement of blood quantum. In modern times, a lot of tribes still use blood quantum to measure tribal enrollment. Not all of them. A lot of tribes have switched over to just purely descendancy, and like who you're like your family tree, like.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot where it says,
how, like in the medieval times, a lot of people showed their nobility.
Yeah. No, exactly. So it's
wild.
But like blood quantum will still be used in a lot of tribes to measure, to determine enrollment. Like, you got to be above a certain percentage and you can be a tribal member, and if you're below that, you can't.
This is crazy.
We don't have to get too much into that, but ultimately but that's like the general
how does that fit
idea,
within, like the themes of the film.
So because blood quantum is this concocted idea that doesn't really exist, it's like you're either tied to this like cultural heritage or you're not. Like, it's where you come from, your ancestors. Like, this kid is going to be Native. There is no measurement of like, is the zombie infection measuring what, 25%? I got you. Like, no. So all of the Native characters are like, no, this is you are going to have a Native child. This is
Exactly.
the child of
Yeah.
another Native American. Like,
Yeah.
that is self-evident to
Yeah.
everybody but Charlie, who does not come from the culture and does not have any understanding of how blood quantum
Because to her, she's
works.
gonna have a white kid.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
kinda-
the thing.
I kind of
That's the
relate
thing
to
that I
that.
really like. Yeah,
I kind of relate to that, of the fact that I'm 25% Mexican, and my mom's side of the family, she's Mexican. So my mom is 50%, and then my grandma is 100%. And so, like, normally when I tell people I'm like, I'm 24% Mexican, when people look at me, they're like, well, you're just a
Mhm.
white guy.
Exactly.
And then when they see
Yeah.
my mom, they're like, oh, she's Mexican. And then when they saw my grandma, they're like, oh, yeah, she's definitely Mexican. And so whenever they saw, like, me, they're like, that's just a white baby. They're
That's a
like,
white baby.
no way. And so it was like, I remember being in school, and I remember another I don't even say a friend, but like somebody that I knew in school, when we were talking in track, and he was like, nah, man, like, you're not even Mexican. He's like, you gotta be 50% or higher.
Oh,
Like, that was their blood quantum. I'm just like, you gotta be 50% or higher in order to be like straight up Mexican. Because like, even like when I was a kid, like, my family and most people that know me can trust me on that, was like, I didn't really do most like Mexican things, of like, I didn't like tacos or tamales or most of that kind of stuff. And my mom didn't really like bring that kind of stuff except for like tamales on Christmas. So it was just
Yeah.
more of
Nice.
like growing up in that culture, like, I never really experienced that. So I consider myself more as, I consider myself more as Caucasian than anything. But it is something of like, I do think about, of like being that 25%, like, that is a significant amount of like heritage and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm supposed to have like less than 10% probably Cherokee Native blood also, but I would never attempt to identify myself to be a part of that culture because I haven't been in that culture. And I think that's where it comes from. It's not like, what do you look like? It's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
where have you spent your time, and what is your culture, and who has raised you, and those kinds of things. And all of this stuff is just arbitrary
yeah,
and made up by white supremacy.
yeah. No, like phenotypicality is really not a measurement of cultural or racial identity. Now that phenotypicality has been weaponized against
Yeah, coming up with things
minorities.
like blood quantum, like that's
but it's
yes.
like, it's so much more complicated than that, and that's the thing that I appreciate with this movie and the way that it's handled. It's handled
Yeah.
naturally to the characters. Like, it doesn't turn. It's not like this needs to be spelled out for you. Like, this is a movie made by Native people for Native people, and so like when you have like this cultural context going into it, or like now we're having this discussion about it, there's elements of this movie that, because it's written by Native Americans, there are elements and subtext to this story that just inherently gets put in because it's coming from this background in the first place.
Coming from the culture itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
white people should watch it.
Yeah.
Even if you're missing those subtexts, like, you should expose yourself to
Well, yeah. Well,
cultures
even something
and
something like
perspectives that are
David,
different than yours.
even something like David Ehrlich put, like, in his Letterboxd review, another film critic that I follow, he put, like, as George Romero first discovered, and hordes of other filmmakers have since refined, zombies have always have fun and executive vehicles for addressing the most intractable anxieties of the modern world. Like, using zombies and using horror as, an outlet for what is the real world. And like you're saying, Freddy, of like, because they're Native American, like, they just happen to just write from like where their worldview,
Yeah.
And like it just works that way.
And it's great. I loved it.
The
Kisugu.
yeah.
When he
Rest in peace
says-
to a real one.
I mean, his last line just gutted me.
Yeah, I will
I'm
I will
not
not leave
leaving.
this land
I'm
again.
not leaving this land again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah. And like this is where it all ties in. It's like it's like all of these lines of dialogue that are they're so simple, but they're so
meaningful.
poignant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just I have like a list of quotes that I wrote down here. So let's just let's see what other
What
little
have we not said yet?
Yeah, we've gone through
It's a very quotable movie.
a lot of them.
Well, the only not a quote, but the only thing I did write was when Lysol got his dick bitten off, and I put,
yeah.
well, you could say he got eaten out, because remember his story about how he was just eating out a girl that he got arrested because he was fighting.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And so when he got
that, he told that story and then was immediately
he got his dick bitten off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he technically got eaten out.
Yeah.
I loved.
If he gets his dick bitten off,
After that story, Moon says, "You've done it on purpose at least once, 50 times by mistake."
Jesus Christ.
God.
That story's pretty explicit. We don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into
we
it.
don't have to go
you
too
need to
much
watch
into
the
it.
movie and catch what they're putting down. But God.
Yeah.
Even with speaking about Lysol, I put like, it is crazy that like, dude, I put like, because I wrote, man, people really be acting crazy when it comes to the end of the world, especially just like Lysol's like decisions towards the end. And I put like, for real, guy gets his dick bitten off and just goes on a killing spree. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it for him right there.
like that was the straw.
I will say there is like, we won't go into it. There is, there is subtext that you could read into with Lysol essentially being like sterilized. That's pretty heavy, but
yeah, that is very.
It is there.
That's a lot. What else we got?
So, but what I will say, I do like how, like the dichotomy of Lysol and Trailer's views of this whole situation in general. Like, Trailer is very much on the line of like helping out the white survivors that come to them is like a necessary inconvenience. Like, it endangers them. However, that's the
we don't want to
that is like the noble
empathy.
Exactly. That's like the noble thing to do, is like help these people out because they need it. And then Lysol is purely like, we need to be looking out for ourselves. At what point have like any of these people's ancestors ever looked out for us?
Exactly. Again, not wrong, but
so, and that's the thing, like,
kind of needs to chill out.
Yeah, but I like that it's positioned where like neither one is just like blatantly told that they're incorrect.
Exactly.
Obviously, like, Lysol starts this, he is the catalyst for like the third act of the film. Like, he gets his dick bitten off and then he says, I'm just gonna let her loose in the part of this encampment where all the white people are at.
What does he
He's
say
like,
when he
fuck
lets
it.
her loose? He's like
Eat all those dicks.
Eat all those dicks.
Yeah. Eat all those dicks. But then at the same time though, it's like Lysol, he is doing something horrible, but like it's like, this is also the same woman that came into the encampment and lied about being bitten.
Yeah.
Like, these people were coming in and lying, and they were still a threat outside of Lysol's worldview
Yeah.
and actions. It's
Yeah.
just sort of like pushed what was more than likely an inevitability, and that's even Trailer's Joseph's mom and Trailer's ex-wife Jess. Like she even admits it when Lysol storms off to go have his party. She tells him, she's like, leave him, and Trailer says, why? Right. And she says, because he's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
and everybody's opinions are justified because it's an unprecedented situation. Like, what do you do? You have to.
It's complex.
You have to process it in your own way.
Yeah, it's complex and it's multifaceted, and I appreciate that the movie doesn't treat it like it's simple. Mm-hmm. And there's like one. I like that they don't treat it like it's purely right and wrong, like
absolutely,
yes or no. Like it's got a lot of layers to it.
It does.
Because look, my big note that I wrote is like the world building is interesting. Of like we've seen so many zombie like stories and stuff, and it is interesting to see like a view where like only one type of person is immune. Where like again like bringing to something like as big as most people have seen, like The Last of Us, of like where Ellie is the only one immune and she's like the quote unquote cure, but like in that world, like it's something like The Walking Dead or like most zombie movies where like everyone has like their camps and factions and things like that, and it's just almost like Mad Max like type of apocalypse where people have like their factions and like things. But it is an interesting view of Blood Quantum of like again like just bringing it into the indigenous people of like what their view is, and it does bring an interesting point of like seeing like other minorities like maybe doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Of like what that would be like with like certain like horror movies or things like that, of like what that would bring. And I was like, I just love that, I guess, twist to like this subgenre of films.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting layer.
And
I think go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that was where like when this first came out, when I was explaining it to people, I would tell them the premise, and I would tell them this is I would say the closest equivalent is a indigenous version of Get Out. Not directly, but capturing this same sort of ideology of taking like a staple film genre, ironically enough, also in the horror genre, and then putting this like racial lens on it.
It's a social commentary.
Yeah.
Horror, which those are my favorite. Are the social commentary ones. I like having conversations about like what's relevant, like what's going on in the world, like that kind of thing. So, it sounds like all of us are pretty high on this film. Obviously, Freddy is because it was his pick. So, I think we should get into our ratings of the film. And we talked last week about how we rate films, so you're going to have to go back and listen to that episode, episode 2, our conversation about Cloverfield, to get an idea of how we rate our movies. Seabuyer, why don't you go first?
Okay. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. I think the ending was cool. I thought overall that this film is really great. I think there is just with Lysol specifically of like his motivations were very like fast, and I wish that like I guess for me like they were explained a little bit more, or just like there was a lot more with the subplots that were happening. But also like what Emma said at the beginning, I do wish that there was just more like fun to this world. Of like my lacking in the film was just more of like the zombie killings and just more of that. So overall I gave it an 8 out of 10. Because I was wishing more for like the gore and stuff, but everything that I got was great, and I do think our discussion is really great. But I think like I'm more leaning towards a 9 on a rewatch based on our discussion. So probably by like next Halloween when I give it a rewatch, because I do think that this is a good spooky October rewatch, you know, constantly rewatch it every year type of thing.
Spooky
so
October.
I do think I'm more leaning
cut.
towards a 9, but right now I give it an 8, but it's a really high 8.
Nice.
Alrighty.
I guess I'll go next. I am very happy with this pick. I liked the movie a lot. I had a good time. I loved the meaningful aspects to it. I love the perspective from Indigenous people, and I think they did a really good job with really like hitting home those points that they're trying to make. But yeah, I kind of already got into a little bit some of the characters. I wanted to get a little fleshed out, some plot lines that I felt were maybe just kind of left. But I am also at a 8 out of 10, a 4 out of 5 stars, which is good. That's a good rating from me. So I just yeah, I liked it. Freddie, where are you at? Freddie,
I mean, where do y'all think I'm at?
I think you're at
we
a
already
5.
know.
I think you're at
It's
a 10.
a 5 out of 5. It's a 10 out of 10. It's extra. I got the Blu-ray. If they released a $40 Criterion Blu-ray, I'd buy that too.
Okay.
So it's like I love this movie
it.
so much. This is like the 7th time I've seen this movie.
Amazing.
Has Shudder released a Blu-ray for it?
I think. I mean, yeah. I think Shudder is the. I don't know if they're technically the ones that printed it. I don't. Does Shudder print Blu-rays?
But there is the official release for this.
There is a Blu-ray release of it.
I think they do that often.
Well, then I gotta pick that up.
Releases their originals on Blu-ray often.
Yeah. The one line that I did not say.
Here we go.
It's Lysol's last line, which is he says it's when he tells Joseph, he's like, "Let me ask you a question between brothers," and he says, "You think that sick chick made it to the Muppet House by accident? Where do you think I got the idea?" Which is like his, him blatantly, like, if the colonialism metaphor wasn't strong enough, they take that last line of Lysol to like just drive it right home.
That's crazy. That's something I didn't catch on this watch.
And Michael Jordan slam dunked that shit.
Oh my gosh, that is very cool. All right, upcoming next week is my pick.
Emma's pick
for Spooky October. So we have Cloverfield and we have Blood Quantum, and the final pick of our triple feature for October is John Carpenter's, drumroll please, 1982 classic, The Thing.
The Thing. Ooh.
So, here's my thing about it. I've never seen it.
I haven't seen The Thing either.
I've never seen The Thing. So why did I pick this movie? Okay, why did I pick The Thing if I've never seen
God
it?
Damn! My mind's blown by you two.
I'm pretty sure Connor just beat the hell out of his microphone. All I heard was him go, "What?"
Yeah,
I think the microphone is.
I tried to move all the way back.
You blew it.
This is just how shocked he was at the fact that neither one of us have seen The Thing.
So God Freddie and I have not seen The Thing, but Freddie and I have had plans to go see The Thing.
We are going to experience
We're going to experience it because it's playing at the Redford, and I want to use this opportunity to plug the Redford Theater, which is an amazing old theater in Detroit that basically is volunteer run. It's kind of like a nonprofit theater, and they play
Much like music box.
classic films, and they have really good picks.
Yeah.
I've been to Redford 3 times this year already. I saw Some Like It Hot. Freddie and I went to go see Seven Samurai.
Yes.
It was awesome. And then my friend Cassidy and I went to go see Vertigo. It was a good watch.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then, so for the rest of the year, we have a couple more that we're going to go to. But this Saturday, they're playing The Thing, and we're going to go see it. And we are going to talk about it next week, because why did I pick this? It is on Letterboxd. It is number, I think, it's either 27 or 47. On Letterboxd all-time list, like the top-rated films, and there are hundreds of thousands of films that have been made, and John Carpenter's The Thing is very highly rated. It has a 4.3 on Letterboxd, which is very high. 75. It is number 75 of all time on Letterboxd. And recently Letterboxd did a top horror films of all time. The Thing was the number 1.
Alrighty.
So I've been excited to watch this for the first time.
It's serendipity.
It has to happen. It's gonna happen for us. We're finally gonna watch this, and then we're gonna talk about it.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It is the number 1 on Letterboxd, and it just so happens to be playing at a theater near us.
So we
it's just see it. It's just interesting of just the fact of like I mean, like, I've seen The Thing, and it's great.
Sure.
And
I know you've seen
but
it.
Like I do think The Thing is great, but it is interesting of just because John Carpenter also did Halloween.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna get into it next week.
I would think Halloween would be higher, but that's just kind of interesting.
All right. I know we talked a lot about how Detroit has no theaters, but in this case, Detroit has a few theaters that do play.
They have one theater.
Old films that are not. They don't play new releases. There's actually several theaters in Detroit that are like the Redford, but we just don't have any theaters that play new releases. Yeah. So I'd like to retract my earlier statement about Detroit, because they do old movies very well, but new movies very poorly.
Yeah.
So we have to drive to the burbs to go see the new movies. So, anyway, that's it for our episode today. Check us out next week as we talk about The Thing.
The Thing. Sounds good.
Yay!
All right. Thank you all for listening. If you
made it this far,
we appreciate you.
We really, really love you. And follow us on Instagram. Triple Feature Pod on Instagram. That's where you'll get updates on what we're watching and what you need to be watching to be able to listen to the episode if you haven't seen them. And yeah, and also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on.
Yeah.
Give us a 5-star review if you really like it. If you really don't like it, just skip the review process. But yeah, just don't even think about it. But if you like it, 5 stars.
Yeah,
5 stars.
Let us know. It's where you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Audible, and YouTube. I think they know how to find us because they're listening to us. Well, just in case you're family/friends, if you want to share it, don't have one of those. Don't have the platform you're on. You can hit them with the whole list. That's amazing. Okay, and just the last thing, just to make sure people that aren't going to see The Thing in theaters, in case you're still listening, The Thing is streaming on Peacock, and then it's also available to rent on Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, and Vudu. Very good. And then also hit your local library as well. Hit your local library, hit your local video store, whatever you got to do. Go see The Thing. Yep. Yes. We're going to talk about it next week. All right. See you then. Bye. Bye. Bye.